What if I told you that you were 40 seconds away from driving into a trap that would have cost you your entire inheritance? My name is Melanie Meyers. I'm 35. And on a random Thursday afternoon in October, in a dusty parking lot, in Leesburg, Virginia, a total stranger in a torn jacket came running at my car like his life depended on it. He grabbed my door handle before I could even pull it shut. "Ma'am," he gasped, hands shaking. "Don't start that engine. Your stepmother? She set a snake pit in that conference room. You walk in blind, you lose the whole pot." I didn't walk in. Blind. And what happened next didn't just blow up 4 years of lies. It destroyed a woman who thought she'd already cashed the check. Welcome to the Payback Vault. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story, it's the reason you never trust a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. Let me rewind the tape. My mom checked out when I was 22. Ovarian cancer, 14 months of fighting, and she lost on a Tuesday morning in March. My dad, Harold Myers, a carpenter who built our house board by board, held her left hand. I held her right. That was the last time I saw the old man cry in front of anyone. He was a quiet bull, wore a gold pocket watch every single day, clipped to his belt loop. His dad gave it to him the day he graduated trade school. That watch never came off. For 11 years after Mom passed, it was just me and Dad. Sunday gravy, tax season, I did his books for free because I'm a CPA, and a phone call every Wednesday at 7:15 p.m. sharp. Then Maisie Hargrove slithered in. Maisie showed up at his church like a bad penny. "New to town," she said. "Recently widowed," she said. She brought casseroles that tasted like nothing and compliments that felt like traps. She smelled like gardenias, thick, sweet, the kind of perfume that sticks to your lungs after she leaves. Within 4 months, my father was having dinner with her 3 nights a week. Within 8, they were married. I didn't fight it. He was 61, lonely, and Maisie was there. But I noticed things. The way she'd steer every conversation away. From money. The way she'd smile at everyone in the room except when she thought nobody was looking. The mask was there. I just didn't have proof yet. Then the bomb dropped. A Saturday in July. My father had a massive heart attack in his own kitchen. The paramedics said he was gone before they even pulled into the driveway. I made it to the hospital in 20 minutes. Maisie? She rolled in 40 minutes after me. And her makeup was flawless, not a smudge, not a tear track. I remember thinking, your husband drops dead and you had time for lipstick? But grief is weird, right? I gave her a pass. The funeral was small, 32 people, friends from the lumber yard. Ruth from next door brought yellow roses because that's what my mom used to grow. Maisie wore black and cried into a handkerchief she pulled from her purse at exactly the right moments. Oscar-worthy performance. 2 weeks later, the nightmare really started. I got a call from a lawyer I'd never heard of. "Miss Myers, my name is Gerald Fenton. I'm handling your father's estate." I almost dropped the phone. My dad's lawyer for 20 years was Tom Beckett. A quiet, honest dude who did our family's paperwork since I was a kid. I said, "There's a mistake." Fenton just cleared his throat and said, "Your father transferred his legal affairs to me about 2 years ago. Mrs. Hargrove facilitated the introduction." Facilitated. That's lawyer speak for she orchestrated the takeover. I hung up and sat in my kitchen for a long time. My father never mentioned changing lawyers. Not once. That's when the pit in my stomach started to grow. 3 days later, I drove to the house my father built, the wraparound porch, the garage that smelled like sawdust and his old flannel shirts. I tried my key in the front door. It didn't fit. Maisie had changed the locks. She opened the door in a silk robe and slippers. Behind her, my mother's reading chair was gone. Just gone. "Melanie," she said with that fake, sweet voice. "This is my home now, honey. I'll send you anything that belongs to you," I asked. "To check the garage." She waved her hand like she was shooing a fly. "Take whatever's in there. I have no use for sawdust." That garage was a crime scene. Tools shoved into boxes. My mom's handcrafted bookshelf, cracked down the middle. And in the corner, a cedar box, 6 by 12 inches. My father made it for my mother the Christmas before she got sick. She was gone. But the box wasn't. I carried that cedar box to my car like it was a bomb. Because in a way it was. It smelled like cedar, old paper, and my mother's hand lotion. I didn't open it. Not yet. I wasn't ready. But I kept it safe. Fast forward 1 week. Maisie throws a family dinner at my father's house, calls it a gathering to discuss Harold's wishes. 12 people showed up. Uncle Gene, Aunt Patty, my cousin Brian, Ruth from next door, and Derek, Maisie's son from her first marriage, 28 years old, unemployed, wearing a brand new suit, like a bouncer. Maisie stood at the head of the table and printed out copies of something. She put them face down like she was dealing blackjack. Then she said the words that changed everything. "Harold was very clear," she smiled. "The new will leaves the estate, the house, savings, life insurance, to me as his wife." She looked right at me. "Melanie will receive a separate bequest of $20,000. I did the math in my head. 20,000 out of 750,000. Less than 3%. Uncle Gene stared at his hands. Aunt Patty sipped water. Nobody said a word. Derek leaned back and smiled like he'd already spent the money. And that's when I saw it. On Maisie's wrist? My father's gold pocket watch. She'd taken the clip off and looped it through a bracelet chain like a trophy. My mother's husband's watch on the wrist of a woman who showed up late to his death. I made the mistake of asking one question. When did my father sign this? Will? Maisie's smile didn't waver. 2 years ago, right after he and I discussed his priorities. I said, "His priorities?" She stepped closer. And in a voice sweet enough to rot your teeth, she said it out loud in front of 12 people. "You were never his priority, sweetheart. He chose me." The room went silent. Not awkward silent, complicit silent. The kind of silent that tells you nobody is coming to save you. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I picked up my purse, pushed back my chair, and walked out. Nobody followed me. That night, I stopped being a victim and started being an accountant with a vendetta. Here's the thing about being a CPA. We don't get mad. We get evidence. I went home to my little 2-bedroom rental, pulled out a photo of my parents, Mom in her garden, Dad behind her with his hand on his shoulder, and that gold watch catching the light. And I started crunching numbers. House, $150K. Life insurance, $750K. 40 years of Harold Meyers waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the lumber yard. And Maisie wanted it all after 4 years of marriage? But it wasn't about the money. It was about the question that kept me up at night. Did my father really change his mind? Did he really decide his daughter of 35 years deserved scraps? If yes, I never knew him. If no, someone was lying. I found a probate attorney named Linda Oakes through a colleague at work. 14 years of experience. Office in a converted townhouse. Coffee mug that said, "I object to mornings." I sat across from her desk and laid out everything. The dinner, the will, the $20,000 insult, the fact that my dad switched lawyers without telling me. Linda took notes like a surgeon. Then she said, "The will looks valid on its face, but I smell smoke. A handwriting expert can analyze the signature. But Melanie, contesting a will is expensive and Maisie will fight dirty." I said, Linda, she already moved furniture before the headstone was in the ground. Linda almost smiled. All right, let's start with a forensic document examiner. We hired Paul Whitfield. Expensive as hell. But the man could spot a fake signature from across the room. While he was working his magic, Maisie made her first big mistake. A certified letter arrived at Linda's office from Gerald Fenton. Inside was a medical file, 14 pages, claiming I had been treated for dissociative identity disorder and delusional episodes at a psychiatric clinic in Richmond. 3 years ago. I stared at those pages. My hands were steady, but my blood was ice. I have never been to a psychiatrist. I have never been to Richmond for any medical appointment in my entire life. None of it was real. But Maisie was trying to make me look crazy so nobody would believe me. That's when I knew this wasn't a fight about money. This was war. Linda read the fake file and looked up at me. If this were real, Maisie could petition the court to appoint a guardian for you. She could argue you're mentally unfit to contest the will. I said, she's not just trying to take the money, she's trying to erase me. Linda nodded. This is offensive. She prepared this in advance. So I did what any sane person would do. I drove to Richmond, found the address on West Broad Street, and stood in front of a boarded-up building with plywood over the windows and a for-lease sign that had been there so long it was curling at the edges. No clinic, no doctor, no nothing. It was a ghost address. I called the Virginia Board of Medicine from the parking lot. Dr. Aaron Kurtz? The woman on the phone typed for a while. Then, we have no physician by that name licensed in this state. Active, inactive, or revoked, no record. Bingo. I sat in my car and wrote everything down. The address, the board's response, the date and time. I took photos of the graffiti, the plywood, the dead sign. Then I drove back to Leyburg and laid it all on Linda's desk. The clinic doesn't exist. The doctor doesn't exist. The whole file is a forgery. Linda leaned forward with fire in her eyes. Good. That tells us how far they're willing to go. But we need more. We need someone inside. Someone who saw the will being prepared. I didn't have that person, not yet. But I did have one thing Maisie didn't know about. The Cedar Box. That night, I finally opened it. And what I found changed the entire game. I sat on my living room floor, lifted the lid. The smell of cedar and lavender hit me like a time machine. On top was a cream-colored envelope. My mother's handwriting. Small, precise. Melanie, when the time is right. Inside was a letter she wrote 6 weeks before she died. My sweet girl, if you're reading this, I'm gone and your father has moved on. That's okay. He deserves happiness. But the house, the savings, the life we built together, it was always meant for you. He promised me, and he put it in writing. Underneath the letter, a last will and testament, dated 10 years ago, signed by Harold David Meyers, witnessed by Tom Beckett and Ruth from next door, notarized. It left the house and 80% of everything to me. The real will. The original will. I held it in my shaking hands and whispered, "Gotcha." I called Linda at 10 p.m. I found the original will. Her silence on the phone was louder than a scream. The next morning, we took both wills to Paul Whitfield. He worked for 6 days. When he called back, his voice was calm but absolute. The signature on the Fenton will is a simulation. Pen lifts in the middle of strokes. Pressure inconsistencies. Someone traced it or carefully copied it. Then he dropped the hammer. The medical file? Same paper stock issues. Same commercial. Font. And the physician's signature has the exact same pen lift pattern as the will signature. My jaw hit the floor. The same person forged both documents. That meant Fenton wasn't just a crooked lawyer. He was the forger. And Maisie was his partner in crime. Now here's where the story gets crazy. I started noticing a guy on a bench outside Linda's office. Worn jacket, stubble, backpack at his feet. He was there every day, not begging, just watching. 3 weeks went by. Then one evening I'm leaving my office at the accounting firm, late because tax extensions are a nightmare, and he's standing right next to my car, hands visible, arms at his sides. "Miss Meyers, my name is Eddie Callahan. I don't want anything from you. But you need to hear what I know." I held my keys like a weapon. "How do you know my name?" He said, "Because I used to work at Fenton and Associates. 7 years. I was a paralegal. Your name was on every document Gerald Fenton prepared for Maisie Hargrove." I didn't take Eddie to a shelter. I took him to a diner on King Street and bought him a plate of eggs and toast. He ate like a man who hadn't seen a hot meal in a week. He told me everything. "I saw Fenton create the new will. I saw him scan your father's signature from a 2019 tax return and paste it into a brand new document. I saw him print those fake medical records on his personal printer because the office one was down." My stomach turned. "Why are you telling me this?" Eddie put his fork down. "Because he asked me to notarize those documents. I refused. He fired me the next week. 6 months later, I lost my apartment. Now I sleep on benches. But I remember your face from the file. And I couldn't let her get away with it." I brought Eddie to Linda's office the next morning. Linda was cautious. "Mr. Callahan, they'll say you're a disgruntled ex-employee, a homeless guy with an axe to grind. How do you respond?" Eddie didn't flinch. "I can tell you the software Fenton used. Legal Draft Pro, version 8.2. I can give you the file naming convention. Myers Will 204. I can tell you the exact dates Maisie came to the office. March 7th, March 21st, April 2nd. And I can tell you the light table was in the supply closet. Second shelf from the top." Linda looked at me. I looked at Linda. We had him. We had the inside man. And that's when we decided to stop defending and start attacking. 3 days before the big meeting, Maisie made her final play. My phone rang. Unknown number. Derek's voice was smooth, rehearsed. "Listen, my mom just wants this settled quietly. 20 grand is not nothing. And your mental health history? That'll become public record. Is that really what you want?" He was threatening me with a file that didn't exist, about a condition I never had, from a clinic that was an empty building. I hung up. Then I called Linda. "They're bringing a psychiatrist to the meeting to evaluate me on the spot." Linda's voice went cold. "That's illegal. But it's also desperate. They know they're losing. So we show up with everything. The original will, the forensic report, and Eddie." The morning of October 17th, I woke up at 5:30 a.m., navy blue dress, hair done, leather satchel packed with dynamite, the real will, Whitfield's report, Ruth's notarized testimony, and the cedar box in the back seat. I walked to my car, pressed the unlock button, and Eddie Callahan came sprinting across the street. "Don't start the car. Derek was here at 6:15 a.m. watching your building." Then he dropped the bomb. "They have a psychiatrist waiting in that room, Dr. Helen Marsh. Maisie hired her. If you walk in blind, they'll ambush you. They'll put it on the record that you're unstable before you even say a word." I leaned against my car, took a breath. "Get in, Eddie. You're coming with us." We walked into Fenton and Associates at 1:50 p.m., conference room on the 3rd floor. Long dark table, 8 leather chairs, Gerald Fenton in his gray suit with a silver pen, Maisie at the far end in a white blouse and red lipstick, Derek to her right, arms crossed. And in the corner, a woman with a clipboard. Name badge, Dr. Helen Marsh, licensed clinical psychologist. Maisie smiled like a shark. "Melanie, sit down. Let's get this resolved quickly." Fenton opened a folder and started reading the fake will. The house to Maisie Hargrove Meyers, to his daughter Melanie. A specific bequest of $20,000. He set the paper down. Any questions? Maisie said. Harold was very clear. Then Dr. Marsh leaned forward. Before we proceed, I'm here because of concerns about Miss Meyers' psychological state. That's when I stepped on the gas. Dr. Marsh, I said, my voice quiet but sharp. Who invited you here? She looked at Maisie, looked at Fenton. Before she could answer, I reached into my satchel and pulled out the cedar box. The room went cold. I set it on the table, opened the lid. The smell of cedar and lavender filled the conference room. Maisie's smile cracked. She recognized that box. She was the one who threw it in the garage with the sawdust. I pulled out the original will and placed it on the table. This is the last will and testament of Harold David Meyers, dated June 14, 2014, signed by my father, witnessed by his attorney of 20 years and his neighbor of 18 years. Notarized. This will leaves the house and 80% of everything to me. Maisie's face went pale. Fenton picked up the will like it was a rattlesnake. He read the signature, the date. He set it down very carefully. This document is 10 years old, Maisie whispered. People change their minds. Linda didn't miss a beat. She opened her briefcase and placed Whitfield's forensic report on the table. The signature on your will is a simulation, pen lifts, pressure deviations. The expert's conclusion, it was forged. Then she pulled out the photos of the boarded-up clinic in Richmond. And the medical records claiming my client has a mental illness. The clinic doesn't exist. The doctor isn't licensed in Virginia. It's a complete fabrication. Dr. Marsh set her clipboard down, stood up, picked up her bag. I was not informed of any of this. And she walked out, just like that. The shrink they brought to destroy me? She left. Now it was just us. Maisie. Derek, Fenton, Linda, me. And the clock was ticking. Linda pulled out her phone and sent one text. 30 seconds later, the conference room door opened. Eddie Callahan walked in. White shirt, freshly shaved, still too thin but standing straight. Maisie's blood drained from her face. Fenton went gray. Derek said, "Who the hell is this?" Eddie said, "My name is Eddie Callahan. I worked at Fenton and Associates for 7 years as a paralegal. I was present when you scanned Harold Meyers' signature from a tax return and used it to create a new will. I was present when you printed fake medical records on your personal printer. I refused to notarize them. You fired me the next week." The room was dead silent. Derek looked at his mother like he'd never seen her before. I looked Maisie straight in the eye. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I said, "You told me I was never his priority, that he chose you, but my father didn't choose you. You chose for him. You walked into a law office with his tax returns and built a version of his wishes that he never wrote, never signed, and never knew about." Maisie's hands were shaking. The gold pocket watch slipped off her wrist and hit the conference table with a soft click. She didn't pick it up. She whispered, "I loved Harold." Then she folded forward, pressed her hands against the table. And she cried. Real tears this time, not the funeral performance, the kind that come when every lie runs out of room. I didn't gloat. I just sat there and watched the weight of the truth crush her. Fenton sat frozen for a full minute. Then he said, "I need to speak with my attorney." Linda smiled like a wolf. "You should. Because on Monday, my office is filing a formal complaint with the Virginia State Bar, and we're forwarding the forensic evidence and Mr. Callahan's testimony to the Commonwealth Attorney for criminal review." Fenton put his pen down like it was made of glass. He didn't say another word. Derek stood up. "I need to go," he said, and he walked out. Didn't look back at his mother. Didn't say goodbye. Just left. The family, if you could call it that, was finished. 2 weeks later, the probate court confirmed my father's original will. The one from the Cedar Box. The one that left me the house and 80% of everything. The Fenton will was thrown out. Gerald Fenton's law license was suspended. Criminal investigation opened. Forgery of a legal document in Virginia? Up to 10 years in prison. Maisie was ordered to vacate my father's house within 30 days. She packed her things and moved to her sister's place in Roanoke. Didn't fight it. The fake medical file was referred to the Attorney General's office. As of today, that investigation is still open. And the scholarship fund? The Laura Ann Meyers Memorial Scholarship, $2,000 a year for a community college student. My mother would have loved that. Eddie Callahan didn't go back to that bench. Linda made a call to a law firm in Alexandria, not as charity, as a professional recommendation. He has 7 years of paralegal experience, she said. And he has integrity. His story proves it. They hired him. Entry level, modest salary. But it came with a desk and a key and the kind of dignity you can't buy. A month later, Eddie showed up at my father's house, my house now, to drop off a document. He stood on the porch like he wasn't sure he belonged. I said, "Get in. I made coffee." We sat at the same kitchen table where Maisie had tried to destroy me. He held his mug with both hands. "Thank you," he said, "for listening." I said, "Thank you for sitting on that bench for 3 weeks when you had nothing to gain."